Hello and welcome to our first podcast here at EF Homes. My name is Eric Fernandez, and the founder, lead realtor here, and I'm sitting with Jason Flynn, our director of sales, and Vanessa Estrada, our lead buyer's agent, and we're here to break down everything real estate for you. We're going to dive into the market stats, find out what's happening locally here from the buyer side, the seller side. Today, let's talk about kind of what's happening in the real estate market. It's May 2024, and spring has sprung. Let's say that.
So May numbers, or it's April numbers that we talk about in May. Now that April has closed out the month, we can finally see what happened in the real estate market, talking about Santa Cruz County residential sales. So just all residential, including condos and townhomes.
No mobile homes.
No mobile homes. But some markets will, when they talk about market stats, they'll cut out condos and townhomes. We include them because it's a huge part of our market here.
Definitely.
Right? For your typical buyer.
Yeah.
So new listings, 282. Compare that to last year at...
Yeah, it's a big difference.
56% more.
You're right. And I think it's just last year everybody was kind of, was not sure what to do, where the market was going. And now we're seeing a lot more consumer confidence on the seller side, where they're like, hey, we waited, we're pent up, we're ready to sell, and we're seeing more things come to market. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to sell right away, which we'll get into, but it's definitely a good sign, but it is definitely well below our average. If we take our pre-pandemic numbers and look at what more of an average market looks like, I think we're still in that area where we could use more inventory.
Yeah, we're a little shy. So from 2014 to 2019, by this time of year we were over 300. We're sitting just below 300. But last year was epically bad.
Yeah.
And part of it,
the storms too. We had crazy weather last year. Yeah, so that definitely had a lot to play into.
Shock in interest rates plus epically terrible weather kind of really slowed things down. I think last year at this point, we only had like 180, right? Yeah. And so now by this time we'd want to see 304 in the month, saw 280. So at least we're getting closer, but it's loosened up for the buyers a little bit in that regard.
And we're seeing homes go into contract. I mean, at a decent number. I mean, it's we're still having more new listings coming on than we do see pendings. Which is an opposite of what we see in the South Bay, right? So we do some sales over there, and it's a little bit very different market there, where we're seeing properties go faster than they can come on. Here, it's balancing out a little bit.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons, probably. A lot of the work from home has changed, so we've seen a slowdown in that buyer activity. People coming from Silicon Valley, maybe working from home, buyers that don't want to drive to 17, deal with the traffic, or maybe not looking at Santa Cruz as much as they were where we had that frenzy, a couple of years ago.
And we've seen some sellers that had purchased in 2020, 2021 because they came from over in the South Bay. They wanted to come, hey, if I'm going to work from home, I might as well work from home near the beach. Totally. That they're actually now selling, going back the other way.
Right.
Sometimes due to weather. Increase in traffic, right? That in 2020, 21, a lot less traffic. 17 was a lot easier to handle.
Yeah.
Now it's back to what we all remember, kind of being
back to normal for us.
We remember what it's like, especially once you get over into Los Gatos or like right into Campbell when it really starts to slow down on the highway. So we've seen some sellers decide to reverse their course and head back over.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Number of pendings was up 9%. So we saw 56% new listings, only 9% more pendings, but at the same time, pendings always lag at least 30 days behind new listings. So we'll see next month if the number of pendings actually, we see an uptick in them. But you were comparing it to like Santa Clara County where it's a completely different market than here.
It's insane over there.
Right, like for every listing that comes up, it goes pending right away. Yeah. They talk about weeks of inventory where we talk about months of inventory.
Right, and they're kind of a lead indicator though, because that job market there feeds our prices here, and we're typically in that 4 to 6 month lag time for what happens in South Bay to what we see in Santa Cruz, county in general. So it's a good indicator to kind of gauge what might be coming down this summer and in the fall market as we move on with the year. So it'll be interesting to watch where we go with that.
Yeah, definitely.
So that brought up number of sales, 159, which was up 71%, which we would expect. Again, kind of more inventory means more sales. Again, really bad start to the year last year. Then Last year, we actually ended up, for the whole year, we ended up okay in the number of sales. Still low, but ahead of, nationally, it was very low. There's like 4.1 million sales all of last year nationally, where normally we want to see 5 to 6. So we kind of are mirroring the national numbers a lot more, because then median sales price was actually down from April to April. It was down to 1.218 million. So not that 1.2 million is low. But we did see it did actually come down, where I think a lot of people were expecting it to maybe, especially in spring, we expect it to pick up a little bit. We came down, but again, when we're talking about such high prices, it doesn't, when we talk about 2%, it's almost a rounding error.
Well, yeah, totally. So what's the message here to our sellers out there, right? And what do they need to know? What is the feedback that we're getting out there at open houses? These are all some good things we should probably talk about. But I think more than ever, the importance of the marketing and the effort that we put into a property when we get ready to sell that property is more important than ever in this market. The cost of money is astronomical, right? We're seeing rates at a very, much higher than they were, cost of money. However, there's still consumer demand at a very high number. So to capitalize on that as a seller, we want to make that property shine as best as it possibly can, because the return is huge. Buyers will just skip over a property that needs a lot of work, or maybe doesn't check all the boxes, right? So we talked about that in one of our market updates with the hot pocket. It's kind of like some parts of this market are super hot and some of them are super cold, and it's ironic, but it's so true. Is if you really want to see success, you've got to really listen to what we're saying when it comes to prepping and staging that home to make it look its best. And I think that's big idea. We want to put out idea, but what am I trying to say? But it's really a big
like a principle.
Yeah, it's just listen to what we're saying. It's a big message, right? It's an important message. So
the marketing gets them into the house, so that's step one, right? But then when it actually comes to writing offers, the buyers are typically pickier, or at least it feels that way, right? Essentially, if I'm going to spend this much money, if I'm going to put in everything I have in order to get this home, I'm going to hope that a lot of those major items are checked off,
are taken care of.
How's the roof? The big ones are always like roof, water heater, foundation. Like how do those look? It's kind of basic ones, but electric we deal a lot with around here. In some of the older homes, that does the electric need updating. Is it up to current standards?
Right. Some of these old ranch houses, 50s and 60s construction, it just, even the old ones, right? We get some, 100-year-old homes, but people, I think, definitely just having that, everything taken care of that's reasonable, right? We don't want to rebuild the house. We're not saying that you can do that, but we need to address some major issues out there, and that's important.
Making sure it's ready for the new buyer.
Yeah.
Almost every seller we work with, we're doing some sort of level of work with the house. Right, even if sometimes it could be as simple as even just getting in there, power washing and landscaping.
Right,
like just
curb appeal,
even the very little basics. But some we got to go all out and refinish floors, redo kitchens. But it's really about trying to get the seller the top dollar for what their house in their specific market needs.
Exactly.
Right, like some of the mountain communities, you go in, you redo everything to the to
and
the
it's
nines.
Still,
maybe not worth it.
Exactly. Well, that's where you've got to talk with us so that you know what that level is, because every area is different, right? We have such a diverse county.
Oh yeah.
We got little bungalows, mobile homes. We've got big, huge mountain retreats. We got septics and wells and all these different things. So we sell them all.
Yeah.
We sell them all, and we know what to do with each property and what's going to be the best ROI, return on your investment on these improvements. So
definitely,
it's huge,
because we see them from both the buyer and seller side, right? Like Eric, you work much more with sellers, do work with buyers, but more so with sellers, and Vanessa primarily works with buyers. And on both sides of that, you see the buyer saying, no, I wish this was done. You have the sellers, a lot of them know, like, hey, I haven't been keeping up the house as much as I wanted to. sometimes we run into the problem of you fix it up, then you're like, oh man, I actually kind of love
actually
this
like
house
it.
again.
Yeah.
Man, I should have done these floors 10 years ago.
That's the best compliment I like when we're done and they say, you know, wow, why are we moving again? You know, it's almost it almost backfires on you, but
right.
it hasn't yet, so it's good.
Not yet, but someday if it does happen, fine. Just there's going to be a cost.
Yeah.
There you go.
And normally show them that receipt for all the work done, and they'll remember.
Totally.
But on the buyer side, like, so Vanessa, like, how has it been going with getting buyers, even not even necessarily trying to get them in contract, but when you're going and seeing properties, how's it been working out as far as what you're seeing on the ground that we don't necessarily see in the numbers?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, you know, with the inventory that we have now, there's still a lot of buyers out there that are looking for the right property. So what I've noticed a lot too during open houses is, like you mentioned, if it doesn't check all their boxes, they are skipping over it completely. So it is interesting now that interest rates are where they're at. I feel like they really are considering their options, which are, you know, tight, not that many options, especially depending on the price point that you're working in. Your options change and competition changes with that as well. We're seeing that lower price points have higher competition, so they usually sell over. You know, there's that middle ground where it's right where it should be, and there is competition but not as much, and yeah, so it's been quite a bit of everything, but as with buyers, having them ready to go with the trusted lender is key right now. A lot of the times you'll go into homes and the buyers are like, I love it, let's write an offer, and they haven't necessarily have their pre-approval, or you know, they weren't expecting to fall in love with it. So then that's when it really comes to helping them get in touch with the lender that's going to satisfy their needs and get them the best options possible. So that's one of the big keys with buyers right now.
That's a big one, right? Because I mean, I think we used to talk about this a lot, but maybe during the frenzy and everything, it kind of overlooked. But really, the lender is such a big role in this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You recently just went through this.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big deal. We've always, you know, but for years been telling our clients and my clients, hey, we really need to make sure you narrow down your lender, work with somebody who's respected locally.
Yeah.
And it makes a big difference. Relationships, it's part of the negotiations, right?
Exactly.
It's part of getting your deal done, part of a successful escrow.
Definitely.
So definitely those are some things that, you know, will be a firsthand experience we know, right?
Yeah, definitely. And also as a Spanish speaking agent, I have access, you know, to lenders that are bilingual and that can offer different things for different people. So really becoming a matchmaker in that sense, not only with the homes, but with the people that they're working with, is super important.
Totally. Very well said.
Well, and it's like once we get an escrow, we become a team.
Exactly.
Right? Like both sides of agents, the buyers, the sellers, everyone's trying to get through this together.
The listing agent and the buyer's agent have to work together to make it work, to get to the finish line.
Together. Then we have the title company, escrow company. But then also the insurance providers.
Oh, yeah.
Becoming much more of a topic this year than it has been in the last few years.
Definitely.
Right. So the insurance, even if, you know, we have a lot of clients in Santa Clara County, kind of over in the South Bay, and I think they don't even really realize what's going on in our county with insurance. And we've talked about doing a whole podcast episode just about the insurance woes and maybe bringing in an insurance broker that can actually talk a lot more specifically to it.
Yeah.
But what we are finding are buyers that aren't quite prepared for what the numbers really look like. You know, and how does a difference of, say, $5,000 a year in insurance, how does that actually impact your payment?
Yeah.
Because then we have run into cases where buyers have been in escrow. They kind of go in, no loan contingency, no appraisal contingency. And then all of a sudden it turns out they can't obtain insurance. And they're somewhat protected in there with contingencies, but really we check those boxes ahead of time. They never have to get their hopes up about the house.
Yeah.
They understand what's actually going on, because it's somewhat driving a bigger affordability problem than interest rates. Insurance
is a big issue right now. I mean, we're seeing, you know, policies to be non-renewed, rates are through the roof, substandard carriers. I mean, these problems we just never had before, right? We're now having to brace ourselves kind of like a hurricane state, you know, in Florida or something where, you know, that was the norm. You know, we've always watched these disasters and you see them on the news, but it never happened to us. And now we've got these wildfires that have really, you know, wreak havoc in California. And it's opened up these insurance companies, eyes to potential problems that's going on. And they're basically like, we want out. We don't want to be here. It's not profitable. And who's paying the price? Well, the homeowners are paying the price. And, we're all seeing it as a resident here. We're all, kind of personally affected by this, and it's just reality. But we need to know. And, we're taking the next steps. I mean, even California Association of Realtors, we're going to have a specific clause now in our contingencies where the new contract that's coming out here in July is basically going to have a standalone contingency for insurance.
Yeah.
So the buyer can say, hey, I'm completely satisfied with this property. I release contingencies, but we still have our insurance.
We're still
contingency.
contingent on getting insurance.
Because you can't, if you have a loan, you got to have insurance to close, right?
yeah.
So that's a big deal. And so that's going to be, something else that we have to address. And, again, we've got some great insurance brokers we work with that are huge, and that, it's good to reach out to us and kind of do that homework ahead of time too.
Yeah. And one thing we really learned last year as this became like a big issue is it is truly parcel to parcel, the insurance woes, right? So just because your neighbor was able to get insurance or not, in some areas they're just saying, nope, this whole tract, this whole like APN tract, things like that, they're saying, no, we won't insure those. But one of the brokers we work with, he was saying, no, it can be parcel to parcel. Right. So that's where I've been encouraging people, at least just start talking to your broker now. If you're a homeowner, talk to your broker now about what's your policy doing, especially if you're with someone like State Farm. Yeah. But other than that, we're all in it together. We'll figure it out.
That's right. So, for sure.
So the other elephant in the room, my favorite topic, is interest rates. So, there was a lot of talk last year about this 2024. We're going to see, I think at one point someone said like 6 or 8 reductions from the Fed. They met last week. We're not seeing those, at least for now, and we're almost halfway through the year. But everything's kind of hovering around 7%. We've seen above 7% now for, I feel like 3, 4, 5, 6 months straight, but maybe dipping right below into 6 and then back over 7. But how much have we actually seen that impact buyers?
What have you seen, Vanessa?
I've seen that they have gotten used to the idea of the interest rate being where it's at right now. They're like, okay, last year I was waiting for them to drop. They didn't. They kept going up. And now they're seeing these reports come out that it's not going to happen this year, if not towards the end of the year. So, that's why people now are really like, okay, now I got to focus on the price of the property because, that's going to be a big factor as well. Now they're like, okay, fine. Interest rate is going to be where it is. It's only getting worse if I keep waiting. So at this point, they're, making sure that the home is exactly what they want. So that way it makes sense for them to lock in that interest rate.
I think when it popped from sub 3, essentially, to 5.5, and people were like, oh my goodness, like I better wait. Yeah. And now at one point, pushed up at 8. Right. And so it's like, ooh, that didn't feel good.
No.
But we recently had the property over in the South Bay with 10 offers on it.
Yes.
But 6 of them had loans attached to them. Right. They were financed offers. And so that, I think, kind of goes to show it's not like, even in these higher price ones, because one of those loans had $1.5 million loan on it. So $2 million property, $500,000 down roughly. And so they were financing $1.5 million, even though we're up above 7% right now.
Yeah.
So affects some people, absolutely. Doesn't affect everybody. Or it doesn't affect everybody equally, I guess is a better way to put it. So even with the increased rates, we're still seeing a lot of buyer activity.
Sure. I mean, it's basically, there's still demand, right? We have, in a nutshell, inventory is still low. There's still a lot of people that want a house, and fortunately, there's people that can still afford your house. However, for a lot of people, it puts them out of reach, and just knowing what your budget is, adjusting that price point, maybe having to settle for a condo or townhouse instead of a single family house, just because at some point you have to stop looking back, right? I mean, you just can't, everybody's like, oh, this happened then, we had this, right, whatever. However, it's really irrelevant, right? I mean, at some point you can continue talking about the past and you're never going to move into the future. And things continue to evolve all the time.
Definitely.
And so I think it's important that people understand. A lot of our buyers that are transacting know that, but a lot of people that are showing up maybe to open houses, or they're not quite sure, they're on the fence, they're confused. and they don't
they're
know.
expecting that dream home right away. That's kind of the case that I dealt with these buyers that I just closed last week. I got them into their first home, which is going to be their transitionary home. It's a townhome. We were originally looking to get them a regular home. Of course, that's what everybody wants. However, their budget just didn't allow them to do that, so then we had to have that conversation like, hey, you got to start somewhere, so starting in something like a townhouse or a condo can then prepare you to get that dream home in the future. You got to have a chip to, you got to have a play in the game, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind.
Right. And as the market, inflation numbers are up, right? But if you look at this, if you're able to hold this property for 5 years, let's say, and that's usually a good indicator, right? Or you'll be able to ride through any market shifts or changes. But 5 years from now, that property should have some appreciation, and you've got a good investment, and you fix your housing costs, right? Let's say rents keep going up, and so you want to get it fixed, and then hey, rates, they do go down in a year or whatever, then you have the option to refinance, or they don't, then you still have got a property you fix your cost at. So I think that is important. It's just the power of home ownership, and people know that it's, especially your primary residence. We can do another podcast on investing. That's a big deal, but investors, it's a different model. But with your primary residence, it's really about just getting into that house. It's more than anything, and then riding that for the years to come. So that's a big one for sure.
I think that point too about locking in your payment.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like you're locking it in, not, I just talked to a buyer this morning that their landlord said, hey, I'll give you an opportunity to buy this home, but if not, I'm selling it. And they're on a month-to-month lease. So it's like that next person that's going to buy it, not likely that they're going to rent it to them, but if they did, the rate's probably going up. And if not, now they're out trying to find a new home at it's going to be higher than the rate that they got into 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's a sense of security in there more than anything.
Cool. But we didn't talk about, guys, is like, what's it like being here right next to Gail's Bakery? We've been in this office now for about 3 years, and it is just it's a vibrant spot, right? It's like never a dull moment, it seems like.
Oh yeah.
The parking lot's pretty entertaining to watch. The food's pretty good to eat. So
the people
the
watching
desserts.
is fantastic.
Yes. So for any of our folks that don't know, we're right here, right next to Gail's Bakery, the heart of Capitola. So I think this summer, all your vacations, we get tons of people coming to visit the area, coming to the beach for the weekend.
We just had someone from Hawaii pop in and say hi.
Oh, that's awesome.
Totally. They own a property here in Capitola, and they were visiting and wanted to come check us out. So I think that we're here. People need to know to stop by, say hi, check us out. We're a great resource for more than just real estate here. We've got a lot of inns. We've got our visitor guide on our window. You can scan and get information about what activities are happening in Capitola, Santa Cruz, Aptos, you name it, anything Santa Cruz County.
Yep.
We've got you covered, right?
Absolutely.
So that's a good one.
It's like we started this saying the weather's getting better. So now come by and say hi.
That's right. Yeah,
So.
it's going to be a fun summer. Some good events that we'll piggyback. There's a lot of good events this summer that will be here. And, you can't miss us on your way into the village.
Yeah.
On the way to Art and Wine Festival,
That's
come
a
pop in.
good
Oh,
one
yeah.
for
Oh,
sure.
no, have you seen, are they doing the Hot Rod show again this year?
Yeah, I believe so.
Down in
Don't
Capitol.
quote me on it, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that
was a good one last
That's
year.
a popular one
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, 100%.
So,
Awesome.
Cool, guys. This has been great.
yeah.
Cool.